Welcome back to the Fried Egg Golf Podcast. I am your host, Andy Johnson. Today marks our 10-year anniversary as a company. On December 9th of 2015, I sent the first Fried Egg Golf newsletter. I wrote it on December 8th while I was at my previous employer. I basically did nothing, and I had come up with this idea. I got great advice years ago, and I had this idea, and I had met my friend Andy Mack, who's a Chicago area entrepreneur, very good junior player, and played at University of Illinois, and he had started companies, and he gave me this great advice. We had a morning meeting. He said, everybody spends all this time thinking about how to perfect their idea before they ever launch it. And he told me that morning, you should just start it, and go, because I had told him this idea for a golf media company. Just do one, put it out into the world. And that's the best thing you could do. Don't spend time thinking about how to make it great before you've ever done it. So that day I went to work, and I wrote the first newsletter and got going, and I sent it to 10 friends who played golf. And then sent it, the next one to everybody that I'd ever played golf with, that I had their email, or anybody that I knew played golf. I had sent them like a nice little letter about, I'm started this thing. And then we were off and running, and, people shared it around, and, we became a golf newsletter, and all of a sudden I became really engrossed in trying to build a golf media company. And at this time, still working a full-time job. So, what I found was I did a lot of work for my side hustle at my normal hustle, and eventually that side hustle became my normal hustle. And, from that point on, I never really have dreaded a day of going to work. And, I wrote about this in our newsletter that went out on Tuesday, but I think the biggest thing when I look back on it was being naive. There was never a doubt in my mind that things weren't going to work out, which I found, when I look back now at how challenging it's been, just like I never in the early days ever thought of a reality where I wouldn't be doing this. And I think that's probably the most valuable thing among all the things that had to go my way. Lots of luck, a really impeccable timing with when we started some things, and then, a ton of hard work, not just from me, but my extraordinarily talented team that I am so grateful for getting to work with. So today's episode, we're going to kind of talk about the last 10 years. I am joined by our first full-time employee hire, Garrett Morrison, who's been a co-host on this podcast, who's written, hundreds of thousands of words, maybe millions of words on the website. Our second full-time employee, Will Knights, who now runs our events, but wrote the newsletter for free. When he started, he basically kept knocking on my door until I said, "Yeah, sure, start writing stuff, and we'll have you." And which parlayed into a full-time job with a start date the day that COVID shut down America. That's another fun wrinkle of the story of our company. And then finally, Brendan Porath, my co-host on Shotgun Start, really a podcast that kind of transformed, I would say, the way people thought about our media business. Guys, welcome on. Thanks for joining me today.
Hello. How's it going?
It's good. It's been, I said this on the Shotgun Start, but I hadn't really thought about the 10-year until yesterday afternoon when I needed to write the newsletter that I told people I would write. And then I started thinking about it, and I just, like, a flood of memories, a flood of fond moments in time. and a great appreciation for all the readers and listeners that have been with us for this time. And I was thinking back to like just the idea of like I would live and die by how many newsletter subs that we added, and then obviously super grateful for all of your guys' hard work and everybody else on our team's hard work that have helped us kind of grow this company into a real thing over the last 10 years.
All right. Well, I want to talk a little history here, Andy, kind of go back to the beginnings of the company and get some of your stories about that. But first of all, just to introduce the voices here, Will Knights is on with us. How are you doing today, Will?
I'm doing well, Garrett. Great to be here and reminisce a little bit.
And Brendan Porath, a voice that many will be familiar with from the Shotgun Start podcast. How many Fried Egg podcasts have you done recently, Brendan?
Not many. I think I did one about this time last year with Jeff Shackelford. I think we did, but aside from that, not many. I know more before the Shotgun Start existed, and now that's where we park all that. And it's good to be. I find it really interesting to listen to you guys reminisce. I mean, it's good. We never do that often here, right? Like it's like we are going a million miles a day and just trying to get stuff out, and I think we're pretty productive at doing that. But God, when you think and stop and think, and Andy even talked about, like, I didn't really stop and think until I had to write something for the newsletter today on the 10-year anniversary. And so I think it's a good exercise to stop and do it. So I'm excited to listen to some of you guys.
We're very much like a tomorrow-oriented company, or like next week-oriented company. Like we got to get done what we have to get done for the next week. And this week happens to be the 10-year anniversary. So here we are doing that. But it happens to be that this task requires us to reminisce a little bit and look backward.
It's funny. I have like you guys all know this. I have a horrendous case of ADHD. Like, it's bad.
It's part of the Andy magic.
And part of how I set this thing up so I wouldn't fail myself was very strict deadlines. And this would never have worked as an occasional blog. And I think like there was probably moments of time where people were wondering like what's going on with the Fried Egg podcast. And that's because I did not have strict rules. But the start of the newsletter, it was Monday, Wednesday. And like I even from like once it got to like 200, the idea of letting down people and them not having it one time at that when I said I was going to deliver this was what got me through so much stuff. Probably drove my wife insane that I was like gung-ho about, these deadlines and that I could not postpone it. And, but the deadline oriented nature of it, I mean, it makes it so you always are looking towards the next thing that you have to do. But it does limit the ability for you to ever reflect on anything you just did.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Andy's wife was the first editor of Fried Egg Golf, or as it was called in its first edition, the Golf Hack.
The Golf Hack
newsletter. But somebody told you that was bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I knew it was bad. Coming up with it, but I was taking the advice of my friend. I wasn't going to let coming up with the perfect name get in my way.
Oh, absolutely. Right.
And
yeah, that would have delayed you another couple of weeks.
A funny story. So I changed it to Fried Egg. My friend who I used to work with, I'll just say his name so he gets recognition, but Paul Spiller, I worked with him at a company called Belly. He was like, I love the Wednesday subject line was your Wednesday morning Fried Egg lie. And he was like, I love the name Fried Egg. Why don't you just do that? And I was like, yeah, that's great. So anyways, fast forward to we're doing like official business paperwork. And my cousin-in-law, I just call him my cousin. He married my cousin. Is that just a cousin?
Cousin-in-law.
Cousin-in-law.
Yeah.
Is my lawyer and our lawyer, I guess. He's like, this fried egg name, this is a terrible name. You have no intellectual property over your name. Why all these tech companies are Google or like these made up words?
Yeah.
Is that then they own all the intellectual property. You need to change the name. And this is like spring of 2016. And I say, no, we can't change the name. The company's way too big. There's way too many people who know it.
Spring 2016.
We had like 1,000 followers at this point.
At this point, and you were at that point 2.5 years away from, maybe more, away from hiring your first employee.
Yeah, but I'm like, we're way too big to do that.
3 years
People will
away
never
from hiring,
forgive us if we change our name.
It's too established.
Got to thank Paul for all the SEO headaches over the years and the confusion for catering companies. But it's a name that's stuck.
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question? Just 'cause I feel like the answer might be funny or random, but why did you pick December 9th to send the first newsletter for a golf-focused company or newsletter? December feels like a particularly
because it was the Shark Shootout, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, so
Right.
I think about this. I was a little frustrated at my job. I was kind of like in charge of our figuring out new ways for our business to make money. And the CEO of the company and I don't think really saw eye to eye. And with where we should be going. And that frustration led me to like, well, I could just do this on my own. So I went on a vacation with my wife to Argentina during Thanksgiving. And I don't know, I can't really remember, but I think I came out of that vacation just more disgruntled about my current employment. And it just led me to want to do something on my own. I think that happens with a lot of people, is where you get kind of dejected at your existing job, and it makes you want to, spend that mental energy that feels like is being wasted on other things. And frankly, like, I was working at a media company, and basically the blueprint of the fried egg was everything I was hoping our company would do. A newsletter that was really content forward, that you didn't feel like you could skip, a podcast. Those were the things I was trying to get my old company to invest in, really authentic content that was like you had to read, because we had a really interesting audience. It was like, and the company's still going. It's doing well. I mean, it's grown. But we had a really interesting audience of like super influential people in the tech scene of these different cities that we operated websites in. And I just thought that was super valuable. I kind of learned what the value of building a really engaged audience was, or like what if we had a really engaged audience, is what I would say.
What was interesting to you about newsletters specifically? Because, Fried Egg started as a newsletter, was a newsletter exclusively for a while. So why were you building from a newsletter in late 2015, early 2016?
It's actually my wife was really into the Skim at the time,
right?
Which is a newsletter that's focused on delivering like news. It was really geared towards millennial women who at the time were in their 20s and early 30s. And I remember her asking me like what I thought about these like random news stories. And I'm like, and she's not really like poring over the news, right? And I'm like, what are you asking? Why are you asking? And she's like, oh, I read this newsletter, The Skim. And I then kind of looked into it because my other job was like very related to this. Like I was trying to sell newsletter advertising, and I became very fascinated with the skim and the hustle and these newsletters. The premise of the newsletter being that's the piece of content. Because what happened at the time with newsletters was you send these newsletters and there's no reason to open them. It's just an aggregation of website articles with an ad in it. And I could just go to the website and find the articles or go on Twitter or whatever. What was unique about the skim and the hustle was the content was in the newsletter. Thus, what you see because of that is people are way more engaged with what you're sending because they don't know what's inside. That's when the content's being delivered. It's not being delivered onto the website. So that's why I just really loved the newsletter concept. I thought, and what I believe in, more so today than ever, as we've seen, like in the years we've changed, is getting a connection with somebody via email is a very intimate relationship. Like, and the way I view it is like, I'm not going to ever disrespect or kind of overstep our bounds in that relationship. When we send you something, it's going to be meaningful, thoughtful stuff. It's not going to be, we sold our list to some company who gets to send you a promotional offer. What I believe is then you have a lasting connection. There's a lot of things that are changing, and who knows, email may change, but we still get mail in our mailbox. An email address is like a direct connection with people, whereas the social media is, you're kind of at the will of the company and the algorithm. So that email connection is really powerful. And I thought, and I believe still, is like kind of the hub of everything we do, because you might miss a tweet or a video that's posted on YouTube, but you can always find that email.
It's interesting how newsletters have survived while every other delivery mechanism, except for maybe the podcast, has been disrupted in some way in the last couple of years. The experience of going to websites is no longer what it once was. Social media platforms change at the whims of their owners, and so you can't rely on that either. But the one constant has kind of been email, and it's been really steady for us.
Podcast is great too, because people subscribe and then you get that automatic push, like it gets sent to your phone, especially the way basic. Apple works.
Yeah. It's the email of audio essentially. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it was, starting was quite, it was a fun, amazing time. I would say the thing that I miss the most is waking up and having, early days, nobody trying to get a hold of you, and you just wake up and have this ultimate freedom of, what am I going to make today? And that's probably the thing that I miss the most about growth. But yeah.
What comes to mind when you think of those earliest days when it was just you? Any stories, any kind of ridiculous events that pop into your brain every so often?
I was texting with a friend this morning, actually, and like right after I started, and Brendan, you'll remember this. Do you remember who the big four was?
Yeah.
It was it Jason Day, Ricky Fowler, Jordan Spieth, and who?
Rory.
It was Rory. Okay, it was Rory. Yeah.
And I think it was in January of 2016.
Yeah.
Abu Dhabi, I think they were playing.
They played at Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
And I think they teed off at like 1 a.m. Central.
Yep, something like that.
And I stayed up all night and then went into work.
Oh, God.
And I watched it. And then I went into work. I was like a zombie. And my wife and I lived in this loft apartment. So we didn't have a ceiling on our 1-bedroom loft apartment for the bedroom. It was like one of those like half. So I'm listening to it like super quiet, trying not to keep her up. And it's just like completely insane behavior. BP, do you remember much from that?
Yeah, I mean, I remember those times, the Big Four, the 2016 Abu Dhabi. I mean, your last comment sort of, like, the only reason any of this works is from a little bit of insane behavior, right? Like, from you. I mean, I think about Garrett, like, went to Yale, Northwestern, like, teaching at, like, one of the most prestigious schools. And, like, taking a chance, obviously very, very smart, could cut his own path, taking a chance. Like, that's kind of insane behavior. No disrespect to Garrett. But obviously a massive credit to the company. Will, like, this young kid, I'll use that term liberally, but kid, you were an adult. But
in your mid-20s when he came on board, right? Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, like,
at that point,
college was a couple of years ago when Will came on board.
Yeah. But you have your act together more than any of us, like, within, like, the first year, like, organized, driven, creative. Like, okay, I like this guy from Chicago. I'll do it for free. Let me, like, and now you're, like, running everything for us on events. And I don't know. And Andy just, I don't know, staying up in the middle of the night, trying to do two jobs at once because he thinks it has conviction. So, like, I don't know. It all starts from a little bit of insane behavior that is driven by kind of love of like wanting to do it, not just wanting to make a bunch of money, wanting to be famous, wanting to do whatever. It was like, we want to do this because we think it's good. And I don't know. That insane behavior comment resonated with me.
Garrett, you were our first staff member, full time. I've never asked you this. What did your, like, family, your wife, and your other close family say when you said you were going to join this small golf flock?
They were excited. Honestly, they were very supportive. So I had a good job. I was teaching at this independent school, as they call it, a boarding school in California called Stevenson School. It was located in Pebble Beach, and that's part of why I got back into golf in kind of the mid 2010s, early 2010s, because I was teaching at this school and around all these great golf courses. So it had been an interest of mine when I was younger, golf and golf architecture. Really got back into it when I became a teacher at the school. And yeah, when by the time I jumped out of that job and into this one, I had been writing about golf for a while, for a couple of years, publishing articles on blogs, occasionally with various magazines and things like that, getting kind of a
what
freelance
was your blog
rate.
Called?
My blog went through a couple of different names. By the end, it was just called Garrett Ford Golf, because at the time I was going by a semi-pseudonym on Twitter, which was Garrett Ford. And
you were
Ford
part of
is
the
my
early burnerverse.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, but
a term I just learned about.
Me too. Apparently, it's a really big deal. But in any case, I was there before those guys. But the reason I was going by Garrett Ford was that I just didn't want my students to find me on Twitter, and I didn't want to have to waste a day of class like explaining what I was doing, right? And so that was it. I was Garrett Ford. Andy knew me as Garrett Ford. In fact, I think he might have thought that my name was Garrett Ford until he literally had to, like, I had to fill out a tax
forms. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely true, because I remember, because I was writing for Andy at that time, and he, like, sent me a message like, I think I'm going to hire Garrett Ford. And I was like, oh, awesome. Like, I love his stuff on Twitter, yada, yada. And I do remember that, like, Andy texted me and said, did you know his last name is Morrison? And at that point, I, like, truly we all thought your last name was Ford.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And you can tell, like, Andy didn't Google me or anything, because otherwise he probably would have figured that out before.
No background searches.
No background checks. No Googling to the Stevenson School website to make sure that I was actually employed by them. In any case, you asked what my family thought. They were into it. They had already been aware that I was interested in going this direction. My wife was very familiar with my frustrations with the kind of boarding school teaching job. It was an overwhelming job that, we lived on campus in a house on campus, and
inside the gates of Pebble Beach.
Inside the Pebble Beach gates. Our house was connected to a dormitory, and I just couldn't get away from my job. I see way more of my kids now than I did when I was working that job. And it's a great job. It's people who do it for decades have all my respect. But most of the people who last that long are real extroverts. They really like being out among people and interacting with people all day long. By 5 years of by the time I had done that job for 5 years, I was pretty tired of it, and so I was ready to move on to something new. Everybody who was close to me knew that, and they went with it. I think, if they had their concerns, and I'm sure there were probably some concerns, they kept them to themselves and just trusted me, which was very, very nice of them.
Will, you were kind of on. You started working in 2017 in a capacity. You were writing and you wrote the newsletter. You pretty much had taken that over. And my thing was we had to hire Garrett first because we needed one person that had a vast understanding of the English grammar system. That was our number one.
For people who don't know, I was an English teacher, right at this boarding school, and that was definitely part of the reason that Andy hired me.
Will had passable grammar. Mm-hmm. I don't have passable grammar. Nothing could be published without somebody reading it. But Will, you came on right during COVID. I didn't want to tell you, but I was sitting in my basement staring at the ceiling, wondering if anybody was going to play golf. When's the next sponsor check or sponsor going to come in? How am I going to, I just hired Will. Why is this happening now? What were you feeling in your apartment?
Well, I was feeling the same thing. It was honestly going back to Brendan's comment of I was young and not really thinking about how the fried egg made money at that point. It was just Andy's hiring me. Great. I got a job. But then you get into the situation. It's okay, how is health insurance going to work? And when are these paychecks going to come? Is it the 15th of the month? Yeah, the basic things. And then a week before I start, the Rudy Gobert incident happens, and I fly home, and we start kind of getting into it. And I realize very quickly how the real world works. And especially when you have a small business and you have to make sure money is coming in the door. And thankfully, we weren't talking about this to each other. We were just worrying about it at home. But I was 26 years old, working at home with my roommate at the time, who had also started a small business around this time. And we were both very nervous and just kind of expressing our anxieties to each other. But he didn't have anybody else to talk to day to day besides me. So thankfully, we at least would hop on a Zoom call, me, you, and Garrett, and we would have ideas, and we would talk about what is going to fill the space that week at the very least. And thankfully that didn't last too long, but there were dark months there at the beginning.
Honestly, COVID was an amazing time if you just looked at it from content creation.
It was enforced solitude.
Brendan, I often look back at what we did with the shotgun start, and I have no clue how we did that. Garrett, you pretty much took over Fried Egg Pod
for a little while. Yeah. Because you were doing shotgun start 3 times a week and running a business, dealing with the financials. We did not have a financial person at this time. It was just you, Andy. And for people who are familiar with your kind of podcast persona, they might think that maybe Will and I missed some paychecks and stuff like that. We never did. All of that stuff was completely professionally taken care of by Andy. And so a pretty overwhelming task that you had. And so the Fried Egg Pod was kind of the victim of that. For a while, it was really irregularly published. And I at some point, we just sort of agreed that I should take on a little bit more of that load. But yeah, those COVID times, it turned out to be an amazing boost for golf, where people kind of went back to basics, rediscovered the game, and a whole new set of people came into the game. And, you know, it's not that made COVID good or anything. It was obviously a very terrible time, but it played out differently than any of us thought. And yeah, I remember Will coming on board and being worried about that. Now, Will had been effectively part of our team for a long time at that point. In fact, before I ever worked with Andy or did anything with Andy, Will was working on the newsletter rather, as you mentioned, Andy, writing the newsletter on a 3 time a week basis. So he was very much part of the team when I came on board, but bringing Will on full time was a big move, something that we were excited about. Will brought so much to the team other than just writing, and so we were very excited to have that. But just the kind of coincidence of that and historical events made for a very uncertain time. I remember actually, kind of in a fit of complete irrationality and panic, selling my driver for a couple $100 because I figured having the extra cash on hand might be a good idea for the next couple of weeks. Like, obviously that wouldn't have done anything if things had gone really bad, but I just felt like maybe I shouldn't have this driver. I ended up having to rebuy a driver a couple of months later. But yeah, it's so, that was a rough couple of weeks, but then I think we realized we can be at home, we can do some interesting stuff, we can learn some new skills, we can really burnish our skills as content makers, take this opportunity and explore some new avenues. And Brendan, I remember you and Andy kind of happening upon this idea of the long form Flashback Friday type podcast. That was sort of a product of this period. And at that time, Shotgun Start was what? Was it
2 years old?
A couple years old?
Yeah,
maybe a year and a half.
Yeah. And so it was kind of born of the fact that you guys were doing a 3 time a week podcast. You just had to figure out interesting stuff to fill up that time when there was no golf, and you sort of figured it out.
I mean, it was a news show.
Yeah,
it was pretty
I know.
Scary.
That was the concept.
Yeah, like everything else, pretty scary. Obviously, it's a news. We will always have something to talk about. We will get news. The content gods provide, and then all of a sudden there was no more golf tournament, no more professional golf or any tournaments of any kind. So yeah, the like Andy said, when you think back on it now, just what we were doing, the amount of work and research and then recording time was pretty substantial. But I think it grabbed a lot of people. People still talk to me about those episodes all the time, and if we had time now, I think we'd do them more often. We plan to do them more often. But yeah, that was an interesting time in the company for all of you guys, and certainly for the pod too.
What was going on? You were working at SB Nation at that point, right?
I was just going to ask. Yeah, SB Nation and then Blog Cabin came about as well during your SB Nation time.
Yeah, I worked for Vox Media, and I remember obviously on their sports side, it was a pretty forward digital media company where you could. The point was to make something cool and unique and creative and not repeat what other people are doing. And the world's your oyster on the internet. And I remember when Andy actually, I think one of my earlier members of Andy he sent me something to edit or read over about Aaron Hills, an angles piece, a width and angle, you were explaining it to people who were watching Aaron Hills, and there you had the scatter.
Maybe the 10th hole. I think it was on the 10th hole.
Yeah. It was the article. It's an article with the title "Width and Angles" in it, and it really resonated.
Yeah, and he sent it to me. I'm sure you to look over, and I'd sort of been, I don't know, brought up and groomed in digital media in a way of looking for cool, different, important shit, not just here's how Tiger Woods shot at 71. And I was like, whoa, this is really, really smart. That was, I had known you and followed your work, but that was the first time I was reading over this is I don't know if it was the most revolutionary piece or the well-written piece. It was this is a different way to make stuff. And it's probably that thing that notion you're talking about, waking up, what am I going to make today? That freedom you had. And that was one of the first things. There was coming from sort of the culture I came from and seeing that, like felt like a really, really good match. Like this guy is really smart and really like is trying to make something different and unique and say something that maybe not all the other people are saying all the time. So yeah, and then we launched into Blog Cabin and all went from there.
You bring up something about like the Vox culture, about thinking outside the box, doing stuff that other people aren't doing.
Yeah.
The company prior that I worked at, we had a staff of writers, and I'll never forget. I was on the business side, but I would occasionally have to go tell them they needed to write some sponsored content piece that I sold, which was never fun. But I became friends with a lot of them, and I would be like, "Do you write stuff that you want to write?" And they're like, "No, never."
Right.
Like maybe one article a week, and they're writing multiple articles a day. And I always thought that was like kind of backwards. It's like you should always have writers, and then for the most part, you should just let them write whatever they want to write, because that's going to be the most interesting thing. Like, let them take a topic or take an event and write it through their prism. And that's, I think, something that, like, established media is kind of botched, is that they feel like they have to do the old, like, well, this worked 10 years ago format, so we have to keep doing that, and somebody's always got to be assigned to that. And that's something that drew me to Brendan's writing, was he's writing about monster cutouts at gas stations.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's why you and your team were able to kind of crack in. I wouldn't say you like could take over, but like you can crack in because all the other golf media space people have like so many masters to serve, and they're doing the reverse of what you're talking about. Like, what can I write to generate the most traffic that serves the ads that keep us the lights on? And you were starting from the opposite end of like, I want to write something cool that I think is interesting or important or funny or humorous, or something I have a particular expertise on, like Garrett, and that will draw the people in, and then we'll build from there, and that will draw the sponsors in. It's not a way to scale right away overnight. Right? Necessarily. There's going to be fewer people wanting to read about the width and angles of the 10th hole than there are that like Tiger Woods' back update or whatever. But it's a way to actually have a voice and authenticity and a real audience.
Too.
Yeah, and a real audience. And nobody was, I won't say nobody, but not many people were doing that. And you guys saw the opportunity, and I think that's why it's been able to stick, why you were able to crack in. Not necessarily take over the world, but why you were able to stand out and crack in and now stick.
What are your guys' favorite things that you've worked on since you've been here?
Go ahead, Will.
I mean, I think there's been so many different variations of my job over the years that
Will's been like basically everything.
I was kind of thinking about it over the last 10 years. I've done everything from like podcast clips to the merch to the writing. And Garrett would edit the newsletter. I would put everything in our back end system, to events, to social media. It really has like kind of transformed over the years. But to your point earlier, Brent, like, when I started writing the newsletter, it was after my day job. I would come home and just like kind of figure out what happened during the day. But Andy would let me write whatever I wanted. And that was like a really freeing thing. It was like, as long as I'm covering the events that are happening, just write about that. And that was always super fun for me. So, I mean, that honestly, like the newsletter being like my responsibility, and it wasn't even my job, was like something that really like got me into Fried Egg quickly. It was like, okay, I'm invested in this thing. I'm not making money off of it, but like, I want this to be a good product. And that was super fun for me as a 24, 25-year-old. And then over the years, I mean, having been in so many different things, I have stories for everything. But I think seeing people at our events now that I've got to know in 2021, or even our first events in 2019, is incredibly rewarding. And just the fact that I consider many of them friends now is something that is probably what I'm most proud of, is the fact that people want to come see us around the country. And so I mean, that's a very long-winded answer to what's my favorite thing that I've been a part of. But I think there's just so many different tentacles of our business that we've been involved in over the years that there's something that everyone can kind of latch onto.
I was doing your review research today, and I was trying to find something in my email, Will, and I came across an old newsletter subject line that you had crafted. That was Mitch, don't
right.
kill my vibe.
Didn't you do Jordan's third leg at some point?
That was Andy. Yeah.
Was that Andy?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our newsletter headlines used to be a little bit wilder than they are now.
That Jordan's third leg came from the LaGuardia airport after my flight was delayed, after I did Up All Night for the Open with Brendan. Brendan invited me to come do video. Yeah. It was like video pod. It basically was what, kind of the beginning of the Shotgun Start, I would say. And we did it with Eamon Lynch one day, and we did it with Richard Johnson one day from the Vox offices in New York. I remember I made the cut at the Illinois State Am and WD'd to go do that.
Yeah. I don't know if that was a good idea, but it was something came of it eventually.
It did. It was a great idea. It was one of the best ideas. But we were like, we didn't sleep for 2 days.
No.
That was the whole premise of the shtick, was we were literally up all night.
I mean, yeah, think about like that. I don't know. Think about that. If Golf Channel just would have picked us off then, or somebody me, I'm glad we, that's where you had Abe and me, you, Richard. I don't know. It was like probably a pretty good show, but except it was at 4 a.m. and nobody was watching. So yeah, that was fun. I forgot about that.
One of the crazy sliding doors moments was when we started the Shotgun Start, and Brendan was working at Vox, and we offered Vox 50% of the pod, and they said no thanks and washed their hands of it.
I remember that well. I talked to my boss. I was like, because this is absolutely not going to, I have a full-time job here. This is not going to be for you or your company or property or project. And they're like, no, like they didn't care about, I mean, at that time we had expanded into politics and all this. I don't know. We had a person running our sports who didn't know who Nick Saban was. I'll just leave it at that. So let alone golf was pretty far down the line, and the golf pod, the notion of a golf pod was sort of like, no, yeah, go ahead and do that. But like, I guess if it gets like big or you can make money off it, we'll need to talk. I was like, all right, sure. I'm sure we will not be talking.
Sure.
See ya. I'm going to do
exactly.
it.
There's no obligation there.
I just got permission. We're going. See ya. Bye.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was right. That is true.
Well, thank you, Vox. Appreciate it.
Right. Well, yeah.
They could be a partner for this pod.
No. Nothing is in writing. We're off and clear. We're running. See ya.
Statute of limitations.
Garrett, what was your favorite piece or project?
I loved doing the first what we now call All Grass is Local. They're videos that are about different turf operations across the world. And the first one of those videos that we did, and at the time the concept was more we're talking about young people getting into turf. We're talking about turf internship programs. And so our idea was to make a short series of videos about the internship at Sandhills Golf Club in Nebraska and Ballyneal Golf and Hunt Club in Colorado. And we made 3 different visits to the courses, talked to the superintendents, talked to the young people in the turf internship program that those 2 courses ran jointly at the time. And that was just such an amazing project to do, because it was a new kind of thing that we were doing. And the focus was really on making a quality piece of storytelling about these people at these places. I thought they came out really well, and that's mostly a credit to Cameron Hurtis and his excellent work. But I often remember the feeling of producing those, being on site at those incredible golf courses. I mean, it was the first time I had seen either of those courses. I was pretty blown away by the courses themselves, and just the opportunity to talk to the people who were working on them and to try to make something beautiful and moving and informative about what life is like when you're living and working at this kind of place. And since then, we've done a number of different videos that have kind of taken that perspective on golf courses, and I've really enjoyed that. I've been involved in a number of them. Obviously, our current colleague Matt Ruchis and Cameron Hurtis are most involved in those video projects now. But whenever I get an opportunity to help them with one of them, it's a big highlight. And Andy, I know you always like to reminisce about staying in the hotel in Mullen.
The Sandhills Motel.
At least, Sandhills Motel. There was at least one night when we needed to stay there. It's not the ideal place to stay, I will say, although they're very friendly there, and it's a bed to sleep in for the night. But it was after a long day of shooting. It was dark. I mean, the thing about these trips is that you're up all day, right? Because you don't go in for dinner because you're shooting at sunset. And so it was 9 or 10 o'clock when we finished up.
I think when you think of the totality of the day, it was one of the hottest days of the year there. It was like 100 plus. And I like remember the day like it was yesterday, because we woke up super early. We had to drive from Grand Plat, which is where we stayed the night before, up to Mullen. And that's like an hour drive, and we had to be there for the morning meeting at Sandhills for the maintenance team, which is like an hour before sunrise in the middle of summer. So
I think you mean North Platte, right? North Platte.
Yeah,
we started in North Platte, went to so if people are familiar with the area, it's not like a short drive.
Yeah, it's not short, but it was just like an insanely early day. We get through, we shoot. I want to say, like, we, obviously shoot all the morning setup, the morning meeting, like them doing their jobs. Then after that, we have these blocks of interviews, and it's like 2:00. And he literally just texted me, which is funny, that like while you were talking about this project. So I go to Kyle Hegland, you and Cameron. Cameron had played, because we stopped there on the way for me moving to California, and we did before the place opened, and we played 9 holes there that week. But I go to Kyle Hegland at like 2, and I'm like, hey, you think we can play? And it was 100 plus degrees. There's nobody on the golf course. Like, go for it. And I remember we're walking, we're the only ones out there, because I remember we sat down on the 15th tee box, which is the furthest point on that side of the property. It's the furthest point away from the clubhouse on the whole property, I believe. And we're sitting there, and we're the only ones on the golf course. And there's, the beauty of the Sandhills is this a vast nothingness. And I think we just sat on that tee box for like a good 20 or 30 minutes. And I don't think we said much of anything to each other, and just sat in silence. And it was like, I'll never forget that. We finished golf, and it was a little cloudy, and we were waiting for the sun, and Dick Youngscap and his wife are just hanging out on Ben's porch.
Yes.
And it was us, Kyle Hegland, Dick Youngscap, who's the founder of Sandhills, and his wife. So the two people that like started this, and Dick Youngscap is telling us about like these amazing stories about digging the mainline irrigation by hand himself to build this place. All these early tales. Hiring Bill Core, and we're doing this, and then all of a sudden, like, this epic explosion of sun comes out, and we get our footage we need, and then we finish shooting, and we have a couple drinks with Dick Youngscap, and then we go into town and go to the motel and picked up a pizza at the 24-hour gas station.
Stop. Yeah, there's the one 24-hour gas station in Mullen.
I think that's where we went for cheesesteak pizza, if I remember correctly, from a 24-hour gas station, and a 6-pack of beer, and we just sat outside. It was a beautiful night, and sat outside, and like, no cars are going by. It's one of those like U-shaped motels, eating pizza, drinking beer off the hood of our car.
Yeah.
While just trains pass through.
Yeah. With the pizza box on, it was either on the hood or on the trunk,
on the hood.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. The 6-pack was on the hood too.
Yeah. And that was, it was just a great moment after a really wonderful day. Dick Youngscap and his wife, I remember, were like rating the sunset. They had a rating system for sunsets that they were discussing. And they gave this one like a 7 or an 8 or something. They had seen better, but it was a pretty good one. So yeah, it's I mean, what a privilege to even set foot on a golf course like that. I've tried to never take that for granted. I've gotten to see a lot of incredible places during my time in the company that I never imagined that I would get a chance to see before I started working for Fried Egg. So, an incredible opportunity to just get to play the course and spend a little bit of time there. But to actually get to know Kyle Hegland, the superintendent, get to know the people who worked for him, learn something about the community that they were all part of, and then to spend some time with Dick Youngscap himself, it just worked out beautifully. And we finished the day on the note of, the pizza and the beer on the hood of the car. So that was really the full experience there. And a day that I'll never forget.
That project, as an outsider who wasn't involved in the day-to-day, like you guys were making these trips out there. I was in Chicago doing events or
holding it down,
newsletter,
writing newsletters.
Whatever it was. Yeah, there were only 4 or 5 of us at the time. But no. But I remember that project sticks out to me too, because like we had done some events at amazing places and we'd like done some travel and all that stuff. But when we actually had like an official project, we were working with Sandhills and Ballyneal. And for me, as someone who had only heard about these places or read about them, they were just completely mythical, but I knew how well regarded they were in the golf space. And I was like, oh, some like very serious places are giving us a chance. And it was a really cool moment as someone just kind of taking in like Fried Egg as a whole from inside the company too, because like, okay, maybe other people actually kind of see what we're going after here and are actually going to give us a chance to work with them in the future.
Yeah, I think that project was a moment when we started to feel post-COVID, okay, we're cooking with gas here. We've got something going here. We're working with some incredibly talented people who can make excellent content, and we've started to resonate in the golf industry to the point where we can go to these courses and make unique things about them. And
at that point, Brendan was full time, Cameron was full time, and our
was Brendan full time at that point?
Yeah,
that was kind of on the okay. Yeah,
he was. He would have started that spring.
I think that's right. Yeah, 22?
BP, you got a favorite story?
I mean,
or moment.
There's so many of them, obviously from Shotgun, but that's maybe more apropos for that pod. I don't know. So many of the amusing stories are like the mishaps, right? Like or the like roughing it life that I think like. I'm not suggesting we've had a hard go of this at all. This has been great, and like, but you had to also kind of love the game for some of these instances, and some of the just, I mean, it's like the pod committing to do it 3 times a week, and where you have to record from, and where you would produce it from, and turn it around and get it out, and we went to, and Will was there. We went to the Ryder Cup in a freaking RV because we're not paying for a house in Wisconsin with limited supply, and we were living on this RV that anytime one of us like rolled over in bed, the other end would shake, and like we had to go. Like, thank God we never even touched the bathroom because we parked in a country club parking lot and used or we went to the Open, and that was like a massive trip. It was the first Open either of us had ever gone to. And I think the first time we gone to Scotland, but like to make it work, we stretched to pay for dorm rooms where you'd have the bathroom at the end of the hall, communal like showers and toilets, and we both got like the stomach bug. We were there. It was the worst. Like it was awful. The best life, but you had some for love of the game situations. And
you stayed in some really creepy houses in Augusta too, didn't you?
Some interesting ones that I don't even want to like. I had the credential via my prior job sometimes. Then I think like, then Andy, I don't know. Well, Will got the raw deal on one of those. I think where he's like, my mental health, that was not good. The one at a gate, you could only do this loop around one little street, and you had to go for a walk, but it was like this, quarter-mile loop you just had to do over and over again, or less.
I think it was the 2021 Masters. Yeah, we had a house. It was not far from the club, but like I got on the grounds one or two times that week, but otherwise I was just covering it on social from the house. And I remember like they pushed up tee times or something, but I needed to get outside. So within that little gated community that was effectively 2 cul-de-sacs, I got my 10,000 steps in and effectively a loop. And I counted it. It was 14 times I did this loop.
My God.
And I was just like, I just needed to be outside. And then I do remember texting you, Brendan, and I was like, golf needs to start here because I'm going insane.
This is not good for my mental health. I don't know. Yeah, one I would throw out from a company-wide perspective on like the Sandhill side of like cooking with gas would be like I think the Kiowa PGA was, I don't want to say transformational, but like sort of affirming in a way that like we weren't out of COVID yet, but like kind of coming out of COVID. Like that was the first one where people could start coming again, and like first time I traveled, and like it felt free in a way. But for us, it was sort of like a proof of concept of, can you get value from going to professional golf events? Of course, we know in our golf course architecture coverage, we need to go to these courses. We need to photograph them. Garrett and Andy and Matt and Cameron, they need this continuing education and on the ground education. And of course, that must happen. With professional golf, I'm not always sure that's like convinced that should be the way. Should you watch this on TV? Can you take more of it in? Is there more value to turn something around real quick, being at your desk? And I think it's a mix and match, but that Kiowa one, and it was writing on the Fried Egg. It was writing for the Fried Egg newsletter.
The video. We did the Kiowa video.
The Kiowa video. And then like the pods too. It's just like we got a lot of insight that I don't think we would have gotten from the comfort of our home. And I think we started to, and sometimes you're at the mercy of whatever happens in front of you while you're there. And I remember like Mike Clayton and several others sent us messages like, God, that was good stuff. Like you can't, that's what we want from you. We want to like to be, get sort of the point of view of being on the ground, be put in your shoes. And I don't know, that just developed in a way where we were in the right places at the right times. And it was a little affirming in that way for obviously not just Shotgun Start, but the competitive golf operations of the entire company of like going to some of these events. And, obviously it was a historic major with Phil and everything like that. And when we were there seeing the Phil Brooks dynamic in that final group.
It was amazing. We've had an amazing group of majors to cover when you think about it. Between Tigers 2019, we had Phil at Kiowa, we had Bryson Rory at Pinehurst. I mean, the country club's kind of like the one that people don't ever talk about, but what a great weekend that thing was. Amazing. And then obviously now you have Rory at the Masters. It's been an amazing. I think that's, you pinch yourself to all these events that you've been to.
Pinehurst was insane. I mean, Pinehurst was like the best major I've felt. Like they just keep up. Yeah, it's been
since
great.
Basically 2015. It's been pretty consistently high quality with just a couple of exceptions. If you think about the majors from 2010 to 2015, it's not nearly the same. So we're fortunate in some respects. But that Kiowa Phil versus Brooks event was I remember that too as a really great moment in the company. Both Andy and Brendan wrote fantastic articles after that event about the different dynamics of the final round and just talking about golf in a way that that I don't see it talked about very often, with an eye for detail and a sense for what it means that is pretty rare. And so that was, it's 2021, right? Kiowa?
Yeah. 2021.
So it's a while ago now, but still very vivid.
One of my favorite memories is from the Pebble Beach U.S. Open, where Brendan and I stayed in a one-bedroom house, and I slept on a pull-out couch that like it just was like a crater.
Oh, it was terrible.
And it didn't have AC, and it was like an insanely hot week in Pebble Beach. It was the week that you started, Garrett.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That was the week that I started, because it was the week that I was moving out of my place on campus at Stevenson School. We were packing up and getting things in the truck, and we were going up to Oregon, where I now live. And we overlapped for a couple of days. You showed up, Andy, on Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever it was. And we had time to go to my classroom and record a podcast. So we recorded a podcast in my classroom. And then you came to dinner that night. My parents were there because they were helping us move. My wife was there. My kids were there. And so that was everybody's introduction to Andy Johnson, this guy that I was going to be working for. And they all very much enjoyed Andy. I think they were put at ease by the fact that he seemed like a solid person, and not a jerk, so they were, I think they were reassured by that. But then the next day we were on the road and out of there. So I actually didn't see any of the Pebble Beach US Open because I had to move to Oregon on that very week.
Do you guys remember the story I wrote that week?
Oh yeah, you timed Bryson, right? You went clockwise.
Yes. You put a stopwatch to Bryson. I was going to say the Hollow Thud article. I remember the Hollow Thud article as well, which was a little more serious, I guess. But
the stopwatch article is my favorite one ever. Ever doing. I was out there with a notebook and I had my phone and I was timing like to the split seconds on all these guys in this group. And it was so funny. I'll never forget. I was walking up the 6th hole, and some fan was like, "Hey, are you Andy Johnson?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, he's like, "Oh, I figured you'd be the only one out here timing people on how long they took to hit a shot." Didn't know me from anyway. Just.
Didn't know what you looked like, just the fact that you had a yeah.
He just guessed by me seeing their timing and jotting down numbers, so you could see the whole notebook. But
this was like way before it got hot with Cantlay and everybody timing Bryson. Remember that at Liberty National? Was it Bryson had some viral video there?
That came after.
Yes,
it started a trend. Basically
this
ripped off the idea.
Yeah, there are definitely people who have replicated that idea to put some numbers to these claims about slow play.
It was amazing. He was averaging like 2 minutes a shot.
he was not fast.
The details. I will tell you a quick story from that Pebble that comes to mind that sort of encapsulates where you were in those startup days, like getting there, like the hybrid days. We did not have like the nicest place, as you said. You were sleeping on like a brick rollout thing, and there was no AC, and it was 100 degrees. And you come back, and you come back from a day at Pebble, and it was 100 degrees in the house. It was like over 90 on the thermostat. And you're like, do what you can to open the windows, and sort of I wouldn't say we're roughing it, but it's not like we're not staying at the Pebble Beach Lodge, but you had cracked through in a way and established yourself in the community or as a golf media person, we some traction, that you had a former U.S. Open champion and Jeff Ogilvy coming to record a podcast with you at this house, Spartan Accommodations. So you're like in this hybrid of like, yeah, we're cooking, we're making a name. Jeff Ogilvy wants to pod. He's a great chat. And he comes over and he like walks in the door and it's like, I'm sitting on the couch in this like small room. You're going to go record the pod like over there 5 feet away. And he like looks around. He's like, huh. He didn't say anything because he's classy and polite. But the look on his face, and there was like, what's going on here? And this like kind of dark room was like that. That was that's sort of an encapsulation of where you were cracking through, but also still climbing your way up.
God, you think about from his perspective.
Yeah.
I think he had just left Cypress Point, where they had done like a U.S. Open champions reunion event at Cypress, and he came straight from there to that little 1-bedroom.
Yeah.
It was like an old fisherman house in Pacific Grove. It was just a shack. I mean, it.
Oh, that was good. That was good. Great pod, too. I mean, he was game. It was just like he walked in this room. I'm sitting over there in the corner. It's like dark. It's like, what's going on right now? Anyways, all right.
I completely forgot about him coming over there. All right. We could do this for literally like 10 hours, I think. But I'd love to hear maybe favorite place that you've gone. And it could be any place that you've gone with Fried Egg.
Question.
Favorite trip, favorite place.
I'll go first while these guys think. I mean, I feel like Northern Ireland should be in the running. There have been so many. That was a massive trip for us, a big one. But when we did that explorations, I guess it was last year, March of 24, and just getting to play like Royal County Down, Royal Portrush with you guys, we're sprinting and working the whole day, trying to get some cultural stuff as well, communal stuff as well. And like the whatever number 1, 3, 8, whatever courses in the world, pretty good weather during a time when no American tourists were around, but also getting the good enough weather to make it not feel awful. Like that's obviously a massively memorable trip for me.
All of us getting the plague at the end.
I dodged that. I got out. I got away from that. But
some of you guys got
yeah.
taken out.
Yeah,
I remember that.
I was on the plane on the way home from that trip. I was like dying. It like hit me mid-flight all the way, long flight. But it hit me like mid-flight. I was dying. I had on 2 sweatshirts and a jacket. And I was, maybe if they're still a listener, but I'm like huddled up in the corner, and next to me is this younger guy. Is like, hey, do you do the Fried Egg podcast? And I'm like, I'm so sick. I couldn't talk to anybody, and I'm just like, yeah, and I just like don't say anything. I huddle away. I always thought like, I hope that guy didn't get sick.
Another quick vision from a trip would be when we went to the Open, and obviously we got to place like great Muirfield and Gullin and all these places before, but we were there for the Open, and it was the first time you got to see the old course, and like you walked out, and like I had a couple people text me like off to the side like, hey, can you like you gotta get his reaction, you gotta get it, I need to see his face when he finally gets to the old course. And I did it, and like it's my daughter's birthday today. You look like my daughter coming. My wife like put all these balloons out in the house, and like she had set this scene, or Christmas morning, and like it delivered. Like that I will never forget you walking on the first tee of the old course. That was a fun trip. You just like honestly like kid in the candy store, like lighting up. Yeah, you started immediately talking about the reversible hitting like, and Stephen Britton was like, of course he would walk out, and the first thing he starts thinking about is the reversible, approach. But that was another.
We
trip.
saw Kevin Na out practicing by himself.
Yeah, that was another trip.
Kevin Na party for one.
Yeah, table for one.
Ironhead, singular.
Yeah, right. All right, go ahead, guys.
Awesome,
yeah.
I mean, so many great trips. I'd have to say going to Melbourne, Australia last year, basically a year ago today is when I was over there, was an unforgettable experience and just something that I'll be probably talking about for the rest of my life. The number of great courses that I saw there was stunning, and the number of really wonderful people that I met was impressive as well. That kind of Melbourne golf community is really something else. So that's number one. It's got to be. I also loved going to Maine this was also a fairly recent trip, I guess, but it was just always something that was in the back of my mind. I'd love to go to Maine and play some of these 9-holers and write about them and take some photos and sort of take people along on that experience. And specifically, the day that I devoted to taking the ferry out to North Haven Island and playing a 1932 Wayne Styles course out on North Haven, and then coming back on the ferry, and that being kind of the day, that was wonderful. And yeah, at some point I'm going to do full justice to that experience. I've talked about it a couple of times and written a thing or two about it, but yeah, that really jumps out as well.
I think mine are very similar to yours, Garrett. Like, there's not one specific place necessarily that's like my favorite, but two trips in particular that jump to mind. One is when Garrett, Andy, and I, we had hosted an event at Meadowbrook in Detroit, and all three of us went to the event. We came out one morning, all three of the bedrooms kind of came to the same place, and we were all wearing the exact same thing, like the same fried egg polo and khaki shorts. I was like, all right, well, we got to get some more stuff in the merch shop here. But then also on that trip,
we went that blue shirt.
We got locked
right?
out of our Airbnb on that trip.
Yeah.
We did, yeah, because double authentication wrecked the world at that time. And we also we went to Oakland Hills and saw Inverness. We woke up at like 2:30 in the morning or 3 o'clock to drive 2 hours to Inverness.
Franklin Hills we also saw on that trip.
Yeah. It was an awesome trip. And then the other one that sticks out would be, like, I haven't been credentialed at too many events, but like back in the day, I went with you guys to a couple of majors. And also the Michigan trip was when the Little Will thing started on Shotgun Start.
I was hoping you would bring that up. I was thinking that was my memory of that trip. Was
Took a picture of like Will next to a cupboard and pretended it was his bed. This is where Will's sleeping tonight.
Honestly, one of the best bits, because everybody would come up to me and Will at events and be like, Will's like the same size as you.
No. Well, but it's brilliant because it seems like Will, when you see him like on a call like this, it seems like he could be short, you know?
Sure, yeah.
Just fine.
It seems like it's possible. It's not that he looks short. It just seems possible when you look at him from the shoulders up. Yeah, that guy could be short. He could be like 5'4".
Yeah, I'm not.
You know,
I'm definitely not 6'5" for sure. Yeah,
but he's like a completely average-sized human male.
Oh man, but that had such a long life. I mean, people were at the Ryder Cup bringing it up to me. It was, God, that was good stuff. But then the other trip, that other credentialed one, that would be the Brookline U.S. Open. That it was also like a combo trip, because that's kind of how we did things back in the day. Like, we tried to tie our own events to majors, which is a ludicrous thing to do looking back on it.
We still try and do that. We're still trying to tie everything together. It's like, well, we have to be here for that. We can do this too.
Try to do that. But it's much easier to do now that we have a larger team. But so like the Brookline, like I went with you guys to the first couple of days of the tournament and then had to drive to Yale because we were doing an event that had been delayed for 2 years.
Oh, that was an insane situation.
Yeah.
And so
God.
Piecing all of that together, like trying to do a major coverage, drive, run a two wave event that we were like, these people had like given us their money in 2020. The world shut down, and all of a sudden
it was the Dog Bowl, right? Wasn't it the Dog Bowl?
Yeah.
We were so excited. I remember when that event sold out. And then
we had a second day.
And then we did a second day, and that sold out.
Faster. It sold out faster. It was like 20 minutes the first one, and then 8 minutes the second one.
And I remember we were looking at each other, Andy, and we were like, holy shit, this is working. This is so great. And then COVID hit, and we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It was heartbreaking. But people... like most people who signed up for that, like, you know, obviously a fair number of people, you know, since the event didn't happen, you know, would want to withdraw. That would be the reasonable thing. Almost everybody stuck with it, right? Like,
we ended up doing
a lot of people stuck with it and just waited until the event happened. And that was like one of the first indications that the community around this company is really pretty special, and just the fact that they signed up in 2020, did the event in 2022, And a lot of people who signed up that in that initial wave finally got the product 2 years later and they were fine with it. That's amazing.
And they only got like half the product, which is the craziest part, because we could only have a maximum of 100 people on property at a time, because Yale was still extremely strict with their rules. So I had to be like, if you're in the first wave, like you need to be off the site by 1 o'clock, because these guys are coming in and they're like, and so, but not only the people coming to the event, but like Peter, who is the GM of Yale, like an amazing guy to work with. And he's like, his communication throughout the whole process was great. And just like getting to know these people throughout the years and their dedication on all ends was amazing.
One of the crazier things about that event was the period of time when nobody was working at Yale during COVID because they had no superintendent and no general manager. And people would ask, like, what's going on with this? And our response would be, there's nobody there to talk to, so we don't know.
We don't know.
We will refund
if the
your
course
money.
Exists anymore.
Yeah, we will refund your money if you'd like. We plan to have an event as soon as as there are people that work there. But I mean, that was a crazy one. Will, I was going to bring up the trip we made. I picked you up from your job. And
to Grand Rapids,
and we went to Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Yeah.
And we stopped at Stoughton Bray. I remember we got beers at a bar that had the auction prices. It was like the stock market of beers in Kalamazoo.
Oh, that place is great. What was that called? Yeah, the stock market crashed every hour, and beer was really cheap. It was amazing.
and then we went to we played Stoughton Bray in the morning. And then we went to the Mines, was it?
Yeah.
And then, there was 36 on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we had 36 again. And it was Pilgrim's Run to Diamond Springs. And all of this, we're droning everywhere we're going. So I think I was carrying around the big drone. The one that Will uses now, the Phantom 4 or Phantom 3. It was a big backpack, and we play 36. I'm effectively double bagging with the thing, and it was while Tiger was winning the Tour Championship. So we were walking up like the closing stretch of Diamond Springs. Me and Will are just like huddled around a phone watching Tiger win the Tour Championship. And then we fly the drone that night. Will's cooking on the newsletter and driving home, and then he's going to work the next morning. So it's just like pure startup hustle, like weekend away, where we shot 4 courses. We Will's writing the newsletter on the way back. In between courses, we're talking about like funny tweets that we could send from the Fried Egg account. Just like encapsulated startup hustle, I feel like.
I think that was also, I had been dating my now wife for like 6 or 8 months at this point. And like Andy and I had probably seen each other in person like 2 or 3 times. Like it's not like we knew each other really well. We worked together after my day job, but I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go out for a weekend trip with Andy. And we really didn't.
We split a hotel room.
We split a hotel room, and that was also when I learned, I learned some quirks about Andy Johnson. Like we finished the first day, and like we didn't have a hotel room booked, and that gave me so much anxiety. And Andy's like, "Oh, we'll find a place," and it all works out in the end. But I was just like, "What am I getting myself into?"
I remember one time Cameron and I were driving from Denver to North Platte, Nebraska, which we already mentioned, and we didn't have a hotel. And we called Andy and we were like, we don't have a hotel. Andy was like, oh, no problem. I'll get you one. And he like called ahead and we had hotel rooms that night. But that is a different way of operating than I had been familiar with before.
We've gotten better.
We've gotten better with planning.
The organization
we definitely
department.
Yeah.
I think the more I would also hadn't traveled at that point. So it was like when you're not in the travel world, you don't know how easy it is to find hotels in certain places. But actually, the first time I met Brendan at the 2019 Masters, Andy booked my flight down, I think like 4 days ahead of time because I didn't know if I was going. But I had taken a full week off of work so I could go down. I was like, I hopefully I am going. But everything always works out. It's
The
just
original,
You stayed at the Bixby house.
the original Bixby house.
The
yeah.
Bixby
That's right.
Boys.
I remember when I
God, I
landed,
loved that house.
I remember I landed in Chicago for the Ryder Cup at Whistling Straits. I guess that would have been 2021. And Andy's like, "We got an RV, and you're driving. By the way, you got to go pick it up." And I was like, "What? I'm not driving this thing. I don't want to be responsible. I don't drive. I've never driven anything over like a SUV or minivan. Like, no, you're driving." I was like, "No." And Will and I went and picked it up, and the owner was obviously a very interesting character because he owns an RV, and he got it off some like Airbnb for RVs. I don't know why you went down this rabbit hole, but you were an RV boy that week, but I had to drive it. And then we're on like the Beltway around Chicago in rush hour, and I'm like, this thing's bouncing. I'm like, oh God, just get us to Wisconsin. So
That ended up being a great setup. Big thanks again to Pine Hills
that place
Country
is great.
Club.
Yeah, it's great.
The best course
Smead.
in Kohler.
Yes.
Wild
And,
Harry Smead.
Yeah, and they let us park in their parking lot, and they kept the locker room door open for us that week so we could use the bathroom and shower whenever we needed.
It is very nice.
We went in the one morning for breakfast or like to sit down, and there was Michael Jordan teeing off, who goes to all the Ryder Cups, and MJ was there, playing a recreational round.
Forgot about
Pretty
that.
cool.
Yeah.
So,
God, that place is awesome.
I feel like
Well,
I
we
should
got to do
mention
a full-time event there.
we're reminiscing about
Put it on the list.
the startup days fondly here, but we're a different kind of company now. We have a lot more colleagues than we used to, and they are very professional, and it has kind of streamlined us and organized us in a way that we just weren't capable of in a few years ago. And I'm very grateful for that. It's although you kind of miss those days when you would just kind of slap together things at the last minute and do everything yourself. There's part of you that misses that, but we're definitely in a better place now.
Yeah.
where we can do so much more efficiently because of all the people that we work with that we've been able to bring on in the past couple of years, who have just frankly been better at a lot of this stuff than we are.
Yep. Absolutely.
I hope this pod was listenable. It was just us reminiscing here.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody asked for this, but this is what you got today. Big thank you to everybody who has listened, who has done anything in support of Fried Egg, whether it's even just tell a friend about what we do. This all wouldn't be possible without, the people on our team, but more importantly, I always say this at events, is like, if nobody ever listened or read, we wouldn't be doing this. And I'm just eternally grateful for everybody that's listened, read for the years, and made it possible for us to build this great team. And I'm really, really excited about the next 10 years and, us continuing to push ourselves to produce better and better stuff for you guys and tell more stories authentically and kind of in our way. So I appreciate everybody. The last 24 hours has been just a, kind of pinch me moment of thinking about what the last 10 years have been. And thank you guys on this podcast and everybody on our team for all the hard work over the years. It wouldn't have been, I think that the best thing I can say about our staff is that I never wonder if anybody's not working hard. And I think that's the number one thing. I never had to micromanage anybody and never have really doubted what people are doing. And that's the dream, as somebody who runs a company. So thank you, everybody. And, we'll be back next week. And, big thanks to PJ. Big editing day for PJ. Another important hire over the years. But thank you to everybody, and we'll be back next week with we have 10-year merchandise. We did the original run. We did a run on our first T-shirt. It was a Sukumba Barry Watt design, width and angles. It's modeled after the fourth hole at Woking. Is the hole design on it? I love that T-shirt. I ordered myself a new one. I have one of the originals. It's pretty worn out at this point. And then we have 10-year hats, which are just like Fried Egg, established 2015, if you want to get in the celebration mood. But thank you, everybody, and thank you guys for jumping on and chatting with us.